Welcome to HFY Sage of Stars, where humanity's spirit echoes across the cosmos. Today's tale reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying force in the galaxy isn't weapons or warships, but a parent's love. The emergency alarm screamed through the cargo bay of the Veritha's Claw, and Captain Rilnox felt his 3 stomachs simultaneously drop into his lower abdomen. He'd heard that particular pitch before, the one reserved for catastrophic security breaches, hull fractures, or, emperor forbid, diplomatic incidents that could ignite interstellar wars. What he wasn't expecting was to find his second officer, Garvok, standing in the loading dock with what appeared to be a small, pale creature wrapped in colorful fabric, making the most horrible screeching noises Rilnox had ever heard. "Garvok," Rilnox said slowly, his mandibles clicking in that special way that meant someone was about to get shoved out an airlock. "Please tell me that is not what I think it is." Garvok's eye stalks drooped sheepishly. "Well, Captain, that depends entirely on what you think it is. Is that a human infant?" The creature, as if understanding the gravity of the situation, chose that exact moment to increase its volume by what had to be at least 40 decibels. Rilnox had survived plasma firefights that were quieter. "In my defense," Garvok started, which was never a good sign, "I thought it was a Bolvatian grub. They were selling it at the station market. Said it was exotic livestock. How was I supposed to know humans look like that when they're small?" Rilnox stared at his officer with the kind of expression usually reserved for watching someone try to drink molten metal. "You bought a creature without scanning it from a black market vendor and brought it onto my ship." "The price was really good," Garvok offered weakly. The infant, apparently displeased with being discussed like cargo, began what Rilnox could only describe as a tactical screaming campaign. Its tiny face turned an alarming shade of red, which, according to his limited knowledge of human biology, probably meant it was either dying or extremely angry. Possibly both. "Do you have any idea at all, what humans do when you take their offspring?" Rilnox hissed, pulling up his communicator with trembling claws. "They declared war on the Krell Dominion for 300 cycles because one of their colonists got kidnapped. The Krell had a fleet of 10,000 ships. You know how many the Krell have now." "How many?" Garvok whispered. 12. Because the humans turned everything else into scrap metal and pretty explosions. The cargo bay doors suddenly hissed open, and Mira, the ship's medical officer, rushed in with her scanner already whirring. She took one look at the screaming bundle in Garvok's arms, and her face went through several colors that Rilnox was pretty sure weren't biologically possible for her species. "Oh no! Oh no, 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 no," she muttered, her scanner confirming what they all feared. "Human. Female. Approximately 8 months old. Healthy, terrified, and absolutely going to be the death of us all. Can we just, I don't know, put it back?" Garvok suggested desperately. "Put it back." Rilnox would have laughed if he wasn't busy planning his own funeral. "Where exactly do you propose we put back a human child? Do you remember where you bought it? Station 47, Dock 9. Or was it 19? Rilnox made a sound somewhere between a growl and a whimper. "You don't even remember which dock? Do you understand what you've done? Humans have this thing, this terrifying biological imperative they call parental instinct. When you threaten their young, they don't negotiate. They don't bargain. They just turn everything within a 5-parsec radius into a debris field." The child, now appreciating the existential crisis it was causing, began to cry even harder. Mira carefully took the infant from Garvok's incompetent grip, making soft cooing sounds that did absolutely nothing to calm the tiny terror. "We need to contact human authorities immediately," Mira said, rocking the baby with surprising gentleness for someone who was clearly panicking. "Every second we delay makes this worse." "Worse? How could this possibly get worse?" Rilnox shouted. As if the universe itself wanted to answer his question, the ship's communication array lit up with an incoming transmission. The identifier made Rilnox's blood freeze in his veins. "Terran Defense Coalition, Priority Alpha." "It got worse," Garvok whispered. Rilnox accepted the transmission with a claw that wouldn't stop shaking. The holographic display materialized into the face of a human woman, her features arranged in that particular expression humans wore when they were being very, very polite before they started shooting. "This is Commander Patricia Wells of the TDC battlecruiser Resolve," the human said, her voice calm in a way that promised future violence. "We have reason to believe you may have accidentally acquired human property from Station 47. We'd very much like to discuss the immediate return of said property. Do you copy?" "Accidentally acquired." That was rich. That was the kind of diplomatic language humans used right before they boarded your vessel and left nothing but floating wreckage. Commander Wells, Rilnox said, trying to keep his voice steady and failing miserably, there has been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. My officer, who is an absolute idiot and will be thoroughly disciplined, purchased what he believed to be Bulvation livestock from a market vendor. Bulvation livestock? Commander Wells repeated, her eyebrow doing something that Rilnox interpreted as the human equivalent of loading weapons. Sir, are you telling me that one of your crew members bought a human baby because he thought it was a grub? When she put like that, it sounded even worse. The vendor said it was exotic. Garvok mumbled helpfully from behind Rilnox, who seriously considered stunning him on the spot. Commander Wells pinched the bridge of her nose, a gesture Rilnox had learned meant humans were reassessing whether violence was really necessary or just preferred. All right, here's how this is going to work. You're going to transmit your coordinates. We're going to come to your location. You're going to hand over the child, completely unharmed. And then we're going to have a very long conversation about how this happened. The child is perfectly safe, Mira called out, holding up the still screaming infant to the holocom. She's healthy, just scared. We haven't hurt her. The change in Commander Wells's expression was immediate and terrifying. Her eyes went soft for exactly half a second as she looked at the crying child, and then hardened into something that reminded Rilnox of compressed neutronium. You have 12 hours to reach waypoint Delta 7, Wells said quietly, which was somehow worse than if she'd been shouting. The Resolve will meet you there. If you're even 5 minutes late, if that child has so much as a scratch on her, if her diaper, yes, I said diaper, isn't fresh when we get her back, I will personally ensure that your ship becomes a case study in creative disassembly. Am I making myself clear? Crystal clear, Commander, Rilnox said quickly. We'll be there early, with a fresh diaper. And maybe some toys? Do human infants like toys? 12 hours, Captain. The transmission cut off. The cargo bay fell silent, except for the baby's continued crying. Rilnox slowly turned to look at Garvok, who had the decency to look absolutely miserable. So, the engineer Crix said from the doorway, where he'd apparently been watching the entire disaster unfold, who wants to explain to the crew why we're now being hunted by the Terran Defense Coalition. Garvok bought a human baby, Rilnox said flatly. Crix blinked, then blinked again, then started laughing, the kind of hysterical laughter that meant someone's brain had finally given up trying to process reality. We are all going to die, Crix wheezed between laughs. We are all going to die because Garvok can't tell the difference between a grub and a human child. I panicked. Garvok protested. It was making noises. How was I supposed to know what species makes what noises? Mira was still holding the baby, who had finally started to calm down slightly, though her face was still red and blotchy. Someone needs to feed her. Human infants require sustenance every few hours. Feed it what? Rilnox demanded. We don't have human food. Human babies drink milk, Mira said, already pulling up information on her datapad. Specifically formula, if they're not nursing. We need to contact the station, find out if anyone stocks human infant supplies. Rilnox couldn't believe this was his life now. Yesterday, his biggest concern was a faulty navigation array. Today, he was running emergency supply missions for a stolen human child while a battlecruiser loaded with heavily armed, extremely motivated humans was bearing down on their position. Crix, set course for waypoint Delta 7, maximum safe speed, Rilnox ordered. Mira, find us baby formula, diapers, whatever humans use for their young. Garvok, you're going to spend the next 12 hours learning everything there is to know about human childcare. Because if anything happens to that infant, I'm feeding you to the humans piece by piece. Yes, Captain, Garvok said miserably. The baby chose that moment to grab Mira's finger with her tiny hand, and despite everything, despite the sheer terror of their situation, the medical officer smiled. She's actually kind of cute, Mira said softly. She's a ticking time bomb wrapped in soft fabric, Rilnox corrected. But yes, objectively, for a species that evolved on a death world, she's adorable. Which makes it so much worse that we accidentally kidnapped her. Hour 3 of the 12-hour deadline, and Rilnox was seriously reconsidering every life choice that had led him to captaining a cargo freighter with the galaxy's dumbest crew. The good news was they'd managed to acquire human infant formula from a supply depot that serviced mixed-species stations. The bad news was nobody on the entire ship had any idea how to actually feed a human baby. You just put it in her mouth, right? Garvok asked, holding the bottle like it might explode. If you drown a human child because you're too stupid to follow basic feeding protocols, the humans won't need to kill us, Rilnox snapped. We'll already be dead from the sheer cosmic irony. Mira had pulled up a tutorial video on human infant care, and the entire bridge crew was gathered around watching it like it was a tactical briefing, which, given their situation, essentially was, "See, you have to hold her at an angle," Mira instructed, demonstrating with the baby, who had been named the Tiny Terror by the crew. "Support her head. Humans are born with underdeveloped neck muscles. It's an evolutionary quirk from their oversized brains. Their babies can't even hold up their own heads." Crix asked incredulously, "How do these creatures conquer half the known galaxy?" "By being terrifyingly persistent and utterly unreasonable when threatened," Rilnox muttered. "Now shut up and let Mira work." The baby, apparently deciding that the formula was acceptable, began drinking with surprising enthusiasm. The entire bridge crew let out a collective sigh of relief. "Status report," Rilnox demanded, trying to regain some semblance of command authority. "We're making good time to waypoint Delta 7, Crix reported from navigation. Current ETA is 10 hours, 40 minutes. Well within the deadline." "Sensors show no pursuit," the tactical officer Van added. "Though I'd like to point out that human stealth technology is exceptionally advanced. They could be right behind us, and we'd never know until they decided to make themselves known." That was a comforting thought. Not. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission," the communications officer Plex announced nervously. "It's from Station 47 Security." Oh, this just kept getting better. Rilnox accepted the call, and the holographic projection showed a frustrated-looking Zenthari officer with the kind of expression that suggested he'd been having a very long, very bad day. "Captain Rilnox of the Varitha's Claw," the officer asked tiredly. "That would be me. Let me guess, you're calling about the human infant?" The Zenthari's antennae drooped. "You have no idea how much paperwork this has generated. We've identified the vendor who sold you the child. Turns out he'd kidnapped her from a human merchant ship that docked here 2 days ago. The parents are currently tearing through my station demanding answers and making threats that I'm pretty sure violate at least 6 interstellar treaties." Rilnox felt his stomach clench. "The parents are alive." "Very much so. And very, very angry. The mother apparently served in the Human Marine Corps before becoming a traitor. The father is some kind of engineer who's been making extremely detailed threats about what he's going to do with our station's life support systems if we don't find his daughter." "Fantastic. Wonderful. Perfect." Rilnox wanted to scream. "We're en route to meet with Commander Wells at waypoint Delta 7 to return the child." "Yes, we know. Commander Wells was very thorough in explaining the situation to us. I'm forwarding you the parents' contact information. I strongly suggest you speak with them before the handoff. It might prevent them from doing something, regrettable when you arrive." The transmission ended, and Rilnox stared at the contact file like it was a live explosive, which in a sense it was. "You're going to call them, right?" Mira asked, gently burping the baby with practiced ease that she'd somehow developed in the last 3 hours. "You want me to call the heavily armed, highly trained, extremely motivated human parents whose child was stolen and tell them that we're the idiots currently in possession of said child?" Rilnox repeated. "Does that sound like a good idea to you?" "Better than surprising them," Mira suggested. She had a point. A terrible, anxiety-inducing, stomach-turning point, but a point nonetheless. Rilnox activated the communication channel with trembling claws. The connection took approximately 3 seconds, which suggested the humans had been waiting by their communicator with the intensity of predators watching prey. The holographic display materialized 2 human faces. The woman had short dark hair, intense green eyes, and the kind of controlled fury that promised violence if the wrong words were spoken. The man had slightly longer brown hair, worry lines around his eyes, and was gripping the edge of his console hard enough that Rilnox could see his knuckles turning white. "You have my daughter," the woman said without preamble. Not a question. A statement of fact. "Yes, ma'am," Rilnox said, deciding that military courtesy was probably his best survival strategy. "I want to make it absolutely clear that this was a terrible accident. My officer purchased her from a black market vendor who claimed she was Bulvation livestock." The man made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Someone sold our baby as livestock." "Your officer is either blind or catastrophically stupid," the woman added, her voice sharp enough to cut hull plating. "Both, probably," Rilnox admitted. "He's being disciplined extensively. Possibly permanently." "Is she okay?" the father asked, leaning forward desperately. "Is Emma hurt? Is she eating?" Is she scared? Emma. The tiny terror had a name, and that somehow made everything worse. Mira, show them, Rilnox ordered quietly. The medical officer turned the holocom to show the baby, who had finished her bottle, and was currently making soft cooing sounds while gripping Mira's finger. The change in the parents' expressions was immediate and profound. The mother's controlled fury cracked, tears streaming down her face. The father covered his mouth with his hand, his entire body shaking. She's safe, Mira said gently. She's healthy. We've been feeding her, keeping her clean, making sure she's comfortable. I promise you, we haven't hurt her. We're taking very good care of her until we can get her back to you. You're the ship's medical officer? The mother asked, her voice rough. Yes, ma'am. My name is Mira. I've been monitoring her vital signs constantly. She's perfectly healthy, just scared, and missing her parents. The father was openly crying now. We were docked at Station 47 for a routine cargo pickup. I turned my back for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Some bastard smashed our ship's window and grabbed her from her crib. We've been hunting for her for 2 days, the mother added, wiping her eyes roughly. When we got the alert that a cargo ship had her, I wanted to commandeer a fighter and come get her myself. Commander Wells convinced us that a diplomatic approach was better, the father said. But if anything had happened to Emma, there wouldn't be enough of your ship left to recycle. Completely understandable, Rilnox said quickly. If it helps, we're absolutely terrified and have been treating this situation with the seriousness it deserves. The mother actually smiled slightly at that. Good. You should be terrified. Do you have children, Captain? 3 offspring, Rilnox admitted, which is why I understand exactly how you're feeling and why I've been having a continuous panic attack for the last 3 hours. Then you understand why we need her back, the father said softly. She's everything to us. We're meeting Commander Wells at waypoint Delta 7 in. Rilnox checked the chronometer. 9 hours and 53 minutes. We will be early. Emma will be clean, fed, and safe. You have my word as a father. The woman studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, Captain. We'll be on the Resolve when you arrive. And Captain, thank you for taking care of her. It's the least we could do after my officer accidentally kidnapped her, Rilnox said honestly. The transmission ended, and Rilnox collapsed into his command chair with a groan. I'm too old for this. I'm retiring after this. I'm going to go back to my homeworld and grow fungus for the rest of my life. Sir, the baby needs another diaper change, Mira announced. Garvok. Rilnox bellowed. Get in here and learn how to change a human diaper. Consider it part of your penance. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and Emma deciding that she really enjoyed grabbing Ven's head tentacles, which the tactical officer bore with surprising patience. She's actually quite strong for something so small, Ven observed as Emma yanked on his tentacle with delighted squeals. Human grip strength is impressive. It's an evolutionary adaptation, Mira explained, bouncing Emma gently. Human infants needed to cling to their parents while the parents were doing other survival tasks. They're born with a powerful grasp reflex, so they're designed to not let go even from birth. Crick said. That explains so much about human military tactics. Hour 11 arrived, and the Veritha's claw dropped out of faster-than-light travel at waypoint Delta 7. The TDC battlecruiser Resolve was already waiting, and it was absolutely massive. That ship could glass a planet, Ven whispered, his sensors showing the full array of weapons the Resolve carried. Let's not give them a reason to demonstrate, Rilnox muttered. Commander Wells's voice came through the communication system. Captain Rilnox, you're early. We appreciate punctuality. Prepare for transport. We're sending a shuttle to retrieve Emma and escort your ship to the designated handoff coordinates. Understood, Commander. We'll have her ready. The shuttle docked with practiced military precision, and Commander Wells herself came aboard with a full security detail. She was tall, professional, and radiated the kind of controlled danger that came from decades of military service. But when she saw Emma in Mira's arms, her expression softened completely. Hello, sweetheart, Wells said gently, and Emma actually reached out toward her with a happy gurgle. Let's get you back to your mommy and daddy. She's been fed within the last hour, Mira reported, carefully transferring Emma to Wells. Clean diaper, no signs of distress or injury. Her vital signs are all normal. You took good care of her, Wells observed, examining Emma with an expert eye. We're not monsters, Rilnox said quietly. Just idiots who made a terrible mistake. Wells actually smiled at that. The parents are waiting in our medical bay. They've been cleared by our doctors, but they're not doing well emotionally. They need to see her. We understand, Rilnox said. Commander, what happens now? To us, I mean. Wells considered for a moment. You'll give a full statement about how you acquired Emma, and where. We'll use that information to prosecute the actual kidnapper. As for your crew, we'll file a report with the Coalition. But honestly, you responded appropriately, returned her quickly and unharmed, and cooperated fully. I'll note that in my report. Thank you, Commander. Don't thank me yet. You're still getting fined for failure to properly scan acquired cargo. And your officer who bought a human baby thinking it was a grub? He's getting mandatory species identification training. Fair enough, Rilnox agreed. More than fair, actually. Wells carried Emma toward the shuttle, then paused at the airlock. Captain, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. Not every species would have taken such good care of a child that wasn't theirs. As the shuttle departed, Rilnox felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't fully realized was there. Sir, we're receiving a message from the parents, Plex announced. It's just audio. Play it. A woman's voice, thick with tears but filled with joy, came through. Thank you. Thank you for bringing our baby home. Rilnox smiled despite everything. You're welcome. Now everyone, let's get out of here before I have a complete nervous breakdown. Setting course for home, Crix confirmed. And sir, maybe we implement a new rule about scanning cargo before we buy it. Already done, Rilnox said. New regulation. Garvok is never allowed to shop unsupervised ever again. From somewhere in engineering, Garvok's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. That's fair. And as the Veritha's claw jumped back into faster-than-light travel, Rilnox couldn't help but think that yes, humans were terrifying when you threatened their young, but they were also surprisingly forgiving when you gave their children back. He'd still never, ever let Garvok go shopping again, though. Some lessons you only needed to learn once. This has been HFY Sage of Stars, reminding you that across the infinite expanse of space, some bonds transcend species, and some instincts are truly universal. Until next time, may the stars guide your journey.